Welcome back. Today we're diving deep into the work of Osama Alshurafa.
Okay.
You've been exploring his ideas on Islamic theology.
Right.
And from the looks of it, he's really got you thinking about how Muslims can thrive in our modern world.
Yeah.
We've got a fascinating mix of sources here.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from his book, The Afterlife Manual, plus some of his podcast appearances.
Yeah. Some really engaging podcast appearances.
Yeah.
What's interesting is how Al-Sharafa tackles this question of balancing our worldly lives with our faith.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of tackles it head on,
Yeah.
and he uses this divine matrix concept,
Right.
drawing a parallel to the movie.
Yeah, right off the bat.
It's more than just an analogy.
That had me hooked.
Yeah.
So how is his, Matrix different from the sci-fi version?
Well, in the film, the Matrix is this illusion,
Right.
hiding this bleak reality.
Uh-huh.
But for Al-Sharafa, the world as we perceive it, it's a veil, yes.
Okay.
But what it conceals is something truly magnificent, the intricate workings of Allah's will.
So it's not about escaping this reality.
All right.
It's about seeing through it to something deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He even uses personal experiences to illustrate this. Like
Mhm.
you shared that story about his wife's car being stolen.
Right.
You'd expect anger, frustration, right?
Yeah, you would.
But Al-Sharafa immediately thought, where did I miss the mark?
Wow.
What is Allah showing me through this?
That's a complete mindset shift.
Right.
I'd probably be filing a police report,
Yeah.
not contemplating my spiritual shortcomings.
Exactly.
It's like he's rewiring how we react to the world.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, in his book, The Afterlife Manual,
Yeah.
he dives into practical ways to cultivate this mindset.
He does. And he even argues that this awareness applies whether we find ourselves in a position of wealth or poverty.
Okay.
It's not about the outward circumstances, but about how we fulfill our obligations to Allah within them.
That brings us to another concept. Intention.
Right.
I know this is a core principle,
Yeah.
but Al-Sharafa seems to take it a step further.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He argues that the quality of our intentions is what elevates even seemingly mundane actions to a higher level.
Okay.
He uses prayer as a powerful example,
Mhm.
contrasting the difference between a rote recitation
Right.
and a truly mindful salah,
Yeah.
where you're fully present connecting with Allah.
He even cites Imam Ghazali, who said,
Yes.
Tahajjud makes the face beautiful.
Beautiful.
So it's not just about the physical act,
Right.
but the inner transformation it creates.
Exactly. And Al-Shurafa in the Afterlife Manual offers specific techniques to help us tap into that deeper presence,
Okay.
to infuse our actions with a sincere intention.
Now, this is where things get a little tricky for me, this role of means idea.
Okay.
I get that Allah works through means without means and even against means,
Right.
but I'm still wrapping my head around it.
It's a complex concept,
Oh.
but Al-Shurafa breaks it down in a way that makes it surprisingly relatable.
Okay.
Take the story of Maryam, the mother of Isa, Jesus. Her pregnancy of virgin birth is a clear example of Allah working without the usual means.
And then you have miracles, where Allah seems to operate against the laws of nature as we understand them.
Precisely.
Now, you might be asking, what does this mean for our daily lives?
Right. Al-Shurafa suggests that understanding these different ways Allah acts
Yeah.
helps us see that worldly means are simply veils.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's Allah who is orchestrating events.
So even when things seem to be happening because of our efforts,
Right.
we need to remember the source of that success.
He even uses this clever analogy of two friends and a curtain.
Okay.
One friend sees food appearing magically through a curtain,
Uh-huh.
but it turns out his wife was behind it preparing everything.
So we're so focused on the curtain,
Right.
the apparent cause, that we miss the true source.
And this ties into the importance of gratitude, of acknowledging that even our achievements are ultimately gifts from Allah.
This makes me wonder, is it ever possible to truly know the divine will?
That's a great question.
Or are we always just guessing behind that curtain?
That is a great question. And this is where Al-Shurafa delves into the heart's intelligence.
Okay.
He discusses the fascinating discovery of neuron-like cells in the heart.
Right.
This resonates with the Islamic understanding that the heart plays a role in thinking and perceiving,
Okay.
not just in an emotional sense.
But wouldn't relying on heart knowledge be a bit subjective? How do we differentiate that from just wishful thinking?
That's where his emphasis on purifying the heart comes in. He
Yeah.
believes that the more we purify our intentions, the clearer that inner knowing becomes.
Right.
And in the Afterlife Manual, he outlines specific practices and exercises to cultivate this heart intelligence.
So it's about refining that inner compass,
Yes,
aligning it with Allah's will,
right.
not just following our whims.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where the next piece of the puzzle comes in.
Okay.
The concept of time as a test.
Okay. This is one that really made me stop and think,
Oh.
especially when he connects it to that hadith. Do not insult time, for Allah is time.
This hadith opens up so many questions.
Right.
What does it mean for Allah to be time?
Yeah.
Alshurafa suggests that Allah exists outside of our linear understanding of time.
Yeah.
He created time as a framework for our test,
Okay.
and our actions within that framework have eternal consequences.
Wow. So this life, this simulation becomes incredibly significant,
Yes.
even if it's just a blip in the grand scheme of things.
And that leads us to his response to Elon Musk's simulation theory.
Okay.
While Alshurafa agrees that our existence is a simulation, he emphasizes that it's a very serious one designed by Allah.
Yeah.
It's not a game we can just opt out of. Our
Right.
choices matter profoundly.
So it's like we're playing a high-stakes game with eternal implications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a crucial question that Alshurafa explores throughout his work.
Okay.
How do we navigate this simulation
Yeah.
in a way that balances our worldly responsibilities with our spiritual aspirations?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is.
Can modern Muslims really achieve that balance between dunya and akhirah?
That's the challenge Alshurafa helps us unpack.
Okay.
And he offers some really insightful perspectives. Alshurafa doesn't present this balance as a strict either.
Right.
He argues that dunya and akhirah are intertwined.
Yeah.
Our actions in this world, even the seemingly mundane ones,
Right.
have a direct impact on our eternal destination.
So it's not just about achieving some kind of 50-50 split.
Right.
It's about recognizing that every moment has potential,
Yeah.
both in this life and the next.
He even suggests that the quality of our actions, the intention and sincerity we bring to them, can outweigh the quantity. It's like giving a small amount in charity with a pure heart can be more rewarding in the eyes of Allah than a larger, less heartfelt donation.
This reminds me of something he talks about in the Afterlife Manual.
Right.
He calls it living with Ihsan.
Yes.
I'm curious how he interprets that concept because it's so central to Islamic practice.
Alshurafa emphasizes the practical application of Ihsan,
Okay.
defining it as worshiping Allah as though you see him,
Right.
and even if you don't knowing that, he sees you. He brings it down to earth with examples from his own life showing how even seemingly small choices are opportunities to embody this awareness.
That's both inspiring and daunting, right?
It is.
Because it means we're never really off the clock when it comes to our faith.
He acknowledges that struggle is part of this journey.
Yeah.
He often cites that verse, "As for those who struggle in our cause and strive hard for us, we will surely guide them to our paths."
Okay.
It's like a roadmap.
Yeah.
Struggle leads to guidance, which leads to Allah's presence,
Right.
and ultimately to Ihsan.
But that struggle doesn't necessarily mean grand external battles.
Right.
It can also be the internal jihad against our own desires.
Right. Exactly. Like choosing to pray even when you're tired,
Mm-hmm.
or resisting gossip when it's tempting.
Yeah.
These inner victories, he argues, are huge in the eyes of Allah.
So it's about making those small, consistent choices
Right.
that ultimately build that state of Ihsan,
Yes.
of living in Allah's presence.
Yes.
Speaking of those small choices, I know he talks a lot about the importance of prioritizing the basics of our faith.
He does.
What's his reasoning behind that?
Alshurafa stresses that our salah, our character, how we treat others, these are the foundations.
Hmm?
We can get caught up in intellectual debates or complex theological arguments,
Right.
but if those basics are shaky, it's like building a house on sand.
And I remember in one of the podcasts,
Yeah,
he had this really striking metaphor for how our souls are nourished.
right.
He compared the body to earth and our souls to rain.
Mm.
The more we align ourselves with Allah's commands, the more our souls thrive.
It's a vivid image, right?
Yeah, it is.
It highlights that our spiritual selves need consistent nourishment, just like our physical bodies.
And sometimes what we don't do is as important as what we do.
Yes.
He talks about the Rakib lessons, which involve consciously abstaining from certain negative behaviors.
Right.
Is that something he advocates for?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He believes that identifying and breaking free from those habits that hold us back spiritually is essential.
Yeah.
It's like a form of self-purification. And in the Afterlife Manual, he provides a structured framework for this, even including tracking sheets.
It sounds like something that would be much easier to do with a community,
Right.
with others who are on a similar path.
He stresses that a lot.
Yeah.
We're not meant to do this alone.
Yeah.
Having that support system, that accountability can be incredibly powerful.
That's a beautiful reminder of how interconnected we are.
Yeah,
And this also ties back to intention, right?
it does.
Because even our interactions with others should be guided by sincerity and a desire to please Allah.
He's adamant about that.
Yeah.
It's about treating everyone with respect and compassion, regardless of their beliefs or background.
Okay.
He reminds us that our character is often the most powerful form of dawah.
He tells that incredible story about a Sahabi who was so generous he gave away everything, even his clothes.
Oh, wow.
When the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked if he was happy with his newfound wealth, the Sahabi said, "Nothing could be better than being a prophet."
Wow.
It's that level of detachment from worldly possessions that truly impressed people.
It highlights the true meaning of wealth.
Yeah.
It's not about what we accumulate materially, but about the richness of our connection with Allah.
So this idea that dunya and akhirah are somehow opposed,
Right.
it's a misconception that Alshurafa really challenges.
He cites the verse where Allah says, "Whoever seeks the hereafter, we will increase them in their seeking, and whoever desires the harvest of this world, we will give them some of it, but they will have no share in the hereafter."
Wow.
It's clear that seeking the hereafter doesn't preclude worldly success.
Right.
It's about priorities.
So working hard, building a career, providing for our families, these aren't inherently at odds with our faith.
Alshurafa even uses his own story as an example. Leaving his job to focus on dawah was a huge decision.
Yeah.
He had to reconcile this with the Islamic concept of halal earnings, of providing for his family.
It's that balance he talks about, finding a way to pursue your passions while fulfilling your obligations.
And he stresses the importance of seeking guidance from scholars, praying for clarity, and ultimately trusting in Allah's provision, which brings us to the concept of tawakkul.
Okay, tawakkul is something I struggle with.
Okay.
It's that complete reliance on Allah, that surrender to His will, even when things are tough.
Alshurafa compares tawakkul to the concept of letting go that's common in many spiritual traditions.
What?
He argues that we get so caught up in controlling outcomes that we miss the beauty of the present moment.
It's like we're trying to micromanage our destiny instead of trusting in Allah's plan.
He emphasizes that true contentment comes from surrendering to that plan,
Okay.
knowing that Allah has our best interests at heart.
Right.
He uses a beautiful analogy of a baby bird in its nest, completely dependent on its mother.
It's a powerful image of trust and surrender.
Yeah.
We often forget that Allah's love for us is even greater than a mother's love for her child.
He even compares our relationship with Allah to knocking on the door of our family home.
Okay.
We keep knocking, knowing they're inside, even if it takes a while for them to answer.
Right.
We need that same persistence in our connection with Allah.
That reminds me, one of the things that really stood out to me was his discussion about the possibility of attaining spiritual superpowers.
You're talking about that part where he talks about developing extraordinary abilities through spiritual practice?
Yeah.
That definitely captured my attention too.
It sounded almost like science fiction.
Yeah.
He even mentions the story of Prophet Solomon, and the jinn who could travel vast distances instantly.
Right.
It's like a glimpse into a realm of possibilities we can barely comprehend.
And while those specific abilities might sound fantastical,
Yeah.
the deeper message is incredibly profound. It suggests that aligning ourselves with Allah's will, purifying our hearts, can unlock a level of potential that transcends our normal limitations.
It's like leveling up in a video game, but for our souls.
He uses the story of Prophet Moses, as a powerful example.
Okay.
He was a man of immense spiritual strength, known for his humility and reliance on Allah. It was through these qualities that he was able to confront Pharaoh, split the sea, and lead his people to freedom.
So these superpowers aren't just about magical abilities.
Right.
They're about cultivating those inner qualities that make true spiritual mastery possible.
Exactly. Humility, compassion, generosity, unwavering trust in Allah.
Yeah.
These are the true hallmarks of spiritual power.
And he emphasizes that anyone can attain this, not just prophets.
Right.
It's about the dedication we bring to our spiritual practice, the sincerity of our efforts.
He also reminds us that this journey is ongoing. It's not about reaching some final destination, but about continually striving, growing, and expanding our understanding of Allah's will.
So it's like our lives become these incredible adventures,
Yeah.
filled with challenges and opportunities that help us unlock our potential.
And that potential extends far beyond this world.
Right.
The choices we make, the qualities we cultivate, shape not only our present reality, but also our eternal destiny.
It really is mind-blowing to
Yeah.
consider that we might be capable of accessing abilities we never thought possible. But I also wonder, how does all this tie back to Alshurafa's teachings on navigating the modern world?
Well, it's fascinating how he bridges those seemingly disparate worlds, the spiritual and the everyday.
Right.
He consistently reminds us that Islamic teachings aren't just abstract concepts. They're a practical guide for living.
Yeah.
He even uses humor to illustrate this point.
You're thinking about that story from his book about his wife asking him to pick up medicine
Exactly.
for their sick child?
Exactly. He realized his initial reaction was pure panic, just wanting to fix the situation.
Yeah.
But then he paused and reminded himself, ultimately, healing comes from Allah.
It's so easy to get caught up in that reactive mode.
Right.
To forget that we're not in control.
And that's precisely what he challenges us to do.
Right.
He uses this everyday scenario to highlight how even in moments of stress or urgency, we can choose to turn to Allah first, to acknowledge his power.
It's like hitting the pause button on autopilot.
Right.
And remembering who's truly in charge.
Exactly.
And this connects back to that idea of the heart's intelligence, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
He constantly encourages us to cultivate that inner awareness,
Right.
to listen to that intuitive voice, guiding us towards what's truly beneficial.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how he brings modern science into the conversation, too.
He talks about those recent discoveries
Right.
of neuron-like cells in the heart,
Yeah.
which really validates the Islamic understanding of the heart as more than just a pump.
It's like science is catching up to what spiritual traditions have known for centuries. Al-Shurafa emphasizes that strengthening our connection with Allah
Right.
through practices like deco prayer and reflection can actually enhance our cognitive abilities and improve our decision-making.
So it's not about rejecting science.
No.
It's about integrating those insights
Exactly.
with our spiritual understanding.
He even suggests that it's like we're upgrading our internal operating system,
Right.
allowing our minds and hearts to operate at a higher level.
This makes me think about something he said in the Afterlife Manual.
Okay.
He talks about how this process of spiritual growth is an ongoing journey,
Right.
not about achieving some instant state of perfection.
He emphasizes the importance of consistency and patience. He shares that anecdote about the young man who dedicated himself to tahajjud,
Right.
to night prayer.
Yeah.
And Al-Shurafa describes the man's face as radiant, illuminated from within.
It's a beautiful image.
It is.
And it really highlights how our spiritual practice can have a tangible effect on us.
It's like the light of our faith radiates outward. It's
Right.
not only affecting us internally, but also influencing the world around us.
Which is ultimately the most powerful form of dawah. Seeing that light in someone,
Right.
witnessing the transformative power of faith.
No, with all this talk of spiritual growth,
Yeah.
Al-Shurafa is also very clear that we shouldn't neglect our worldly responsibilities.
Right.
He doesn't advocate for a life of isolation or withdrawal.
He seems to emphasize balance in everything.
Yeah.
He wants us to engage with this world,
Yes.
to contribute to society,
Uh,
to have families,
right.
and to pursue our passions.
But to do all of that with a heart that's connected to Allah.
Yeah.
He constantly challenges that idea that success in dunya and akhirah are somehow incompatible.
He uses the example of Prophet Solomon,
Yes.
who was both a powerful ruler
Mm-hmm.
and a deeply spiritual man.
Suleiman's story shows that worldly success,
Right.
when pursued within an Islamic framework, can actually enhance our spiritual growth.
It's a powerful reminder that all blessings, both worldly and spiritual, come from Allah.
And that brings us back to tawakkul,
Yeah.
to that complete reliance on Allah.
Right.
It's something many of us struggle with.
Yeah.
But Al-Shurafa offers a beautiful metaphor to help us understand it.
Okay.
He compares it to a baby bird in its nest, completely dependent on its mother for survival.
It's such a vivid image of pure trust and surrender.
It is.
We often forget that Allah's love and care for us surpasses even that of a mother for her child.
It's about letting go of that need to control everything,
Right.
to accept that Allah's plan is ultimately for our benefit.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into the world of Ousama Alshurafa.
It has.
It's amazing how he takes these profound concepts and makes them so relatable and applicable to our lives.
He provides a roadmap for navigating the complexities of modern life
Right.
while staying true to our faith.
And it all comes down to intention,
Right.
to purifying our hearts, and to developing that unwavering trust in Allah's plan. If you're feeling inspired to delve deeper into Al-Shurafa's work,
Yeah.
his book, The Afterlife Manual, is a fantastic resource.
It is.
He offers practical guidance and exercises for cultivating the mindset and habits he talks about.
And his website, Muslim Hub,
Yeah.
is a great place to connect with a community of like-minded individuals
Mm-hmm.
who are also on this journey of spiritual growth.
So as we wrap up, take a moment to reflect on what resonated with you most from our conversation.
Yeah.
What are you taking away from this deep dive?
Right.
What are you inspired to explore further?
Hmm.
Remember, this is just the beginning of your journey.
Yeah.
Al-Shurafa has provided the map. Now it's up to you to take those steps
Mm-hmm.
and to trust in the process.
May Allah guide us all on this path of seeking knowledge
Amen.
and striving for excellence in both our worldly lives and in our preparation for the hereafter.